Hi everyone, my name is Caleb Padilla and I'm enrolled in the online course Animal Ag and the Environment at Virginia Tech. Today we'll be talking about precision nitrogen management, focusing on two variations of this program, which are split application of nitrogen to corn with a pre-side dress nitrate test and late winter split applications of nitrogen on small grains. As stated by the High Plains Regional Climate Center, farmers traditionally apply nitrogen to the soil in a single pass during either the fall or in the spring before planting. The main issue with this technique is that an early application of nitrogen can result in significant losses. Let's start off by asking ourselves, why would farmers use these management practices? What are the goals and benefits? The first reason is simply that these programs allow farmers to save money through the reduction in total nitrogen use, which can be expensive if the farmer is using an excessive amount. Another reason for this program is because it provides savings to society. And what do I mean by that, you say? That simply just means that if this program is implemented correctly, it should assist in reducing nitrogen runoff from the farm, which could have a potential negative environmental implication, such as eutrophication, which would require a lot of time and money to correct. Finally, when operating under this program and applying nitrogen to plants when it is needed can result in potential yield benefits, which, as you guessed it, could bring in more money to the farmer. As mentioned earlier, we will be discussing two variations of this program. Let's start off with briefly discussing split application of nitrogen on corn. This program for corn involves two applications of nitrogen. One application in the fall or around the time of planting, and a second application after planting when there is the greatest demand for nitrogen from the crop. The first application is dependent on the pre-side dress nitrate test, which is used to determine if additional fertilizer nitrogen is needed for corn, and involves testing of the soil. The second application is dependent on the growth stage. For corn, it would be when it is about 15 to 24 inches tall, and that would generally indicate that the plant is entering its highest demand for nitrogen. So now we're moving on to late winter split application. This program for small grains involves two applications of nitrogen based on the growth progression of this crop. The first application occurs in late January to early February when you will be looking for a below optimal tiller density, which if the tiller density is below the optimum level of 50 tillers per square foot, it is important to apply fertilizer at that time. If you are not a farmer and watching this video, a tiller is defined by NC State as stems with 3 or more leaves, which would be likely to produce a head. The second application would be applied in March. The main reason why splitting up the nitrogen applications into two parts is important is because it allows nitrogen to stimulate tillering without increasing the risk of freeze damage, disease, and lodging. Additionally, the second application in early spring will give the necessary nitrogen needed for grain production. However, nothing comes without trade-offs, so let's jump into problems and potential barriers for this type of management. In general, the agricultural field is very weather and equipment dependent and comes with time sensitivity in terms of applications. For example, if soils are too wet during the time when the second application of nitrogen is needed, it could lead to insufficient nitrogen levels, which may result in lower yields. This is also true for split nitrogen applications, as you want to make sure that the nitrogen is getting to the crop versus running off the farm and potentially into local water resources. Soil sampling is also dependent on the weather, as it could potentially affect the results. This program can also come with additional costs, such as needing to make two separate passes through the fields at different times in the year. Nitrate soil sampling is a cost that is more specific to the split nitrogen application program, but generally that is something that is important to know when wanting to maximize your production yields. This cost can vary depending on what group you work with and is dependent on the number of samples needed to be taken. However, most farmers that I personally know work with their state cooperative extension agents to assist them with these tasks. Additionally, It is dependent on the state, but there are policies and specifications for implementing these programs, and that can be found on your state's Department of Conservation and Recreation website. Overall, I think both variations of the precision nitrogen application program has pros and cons that should be weighed out by each individual farm. However, the implementation of these programs could have a positive effect on the environment. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. The next slide that will be up is just my list of resources.